Hello, good evening, everyone. This is your host, Gifty Annie, for the Intentional Beacon podcast, the platform where we shine light on the power of intentionality, authenticity, and resilience. What do I mean by that? I mean, it is a platform where we give our guests the opportunity to share their unique journey and stories about how they have navigated life's difficulties and trials and tribulations and with clarity, purpose, and to become impactful. So in today's episode, I've got a very incredible woman who has been a blessing to me in my personal journey to learn IT and to grow and amplifying my skills. And her name is Marie Njie. She's also the founder of a unique recruitment firm, which is known as the Recruitment Best Practice Specialist firm, and also is also for training. But I'm going to allow her to introduce herself to you as our listeners. So for our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in tonight to hear the nuggets of wisdom that we are about to hear from our special guest, Marie. Thank you so much, Marie. It is a joy to have you as my own mentor as well to join me tonight and to share your unique story. Thank you for this opportunity. So without taking much time, please, can you introduce yourself to our listeners, how you would like them to know you?
Good evening, Gifty. Thank you so much for having me here on your podcast, the Intentional Beacon podcast. I am truly grateful to be here. And your intention with regards to your podcast really sort of resonates with me. In both our ways of trying to share what we have within us with the rest of the world in order to help others empower themselves and grow to become the best version of themselves. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. That is amazing. Just to briefly give us a bit about your background in terms of your personal journey and professional journey so that our listeners know where you come from and what you've got to offer.
Yes, of course. Yes. So in terms of my background, I come from the Gambia in West Africa. Oh. And, I spent a little bit of my time in the Gambia. My sort of early years were in the Gambia. However, my formative years, so early teens onwards up to my early 20s, I spent in the diplomatic community, predominantly in Europe. And in Belgium, more specifically. Wow. So we traveled quite a bit with my mother, who was a diplomat, and I ended up in Belgium, where I spent the majority of my time. So I went to an international school, which was a European school, where we had to learn half of our subjects in our mother tongue, which for me is English, because the Gambia is an English colony. A former English colony.
Okay.
And the other half, yes, the other half we had to do in one of the European languages. And so I chose French because I started studying French back home in the Gambia. And so, yes, my studies took me from Belgium. Well, after high school, I did the majority of my high schooling in Belgium, some in the United States. But also went back to Belgium to study computer science, computer programming.
Wow.
And I then decided to get married to the boy with whom I used to sit at a desk, the same desk in primary school.
Oh, wow.
And that's what brought me to the UK. I came to the UK in 1992 to join him. Wow. And I continued my studies whilst married and with 2 children. So
Wow.
in Aberdeen University, where I was, I studied computers. I continued to study computer science and psychology as well. So um, after, at the end of my degree, or my degrees rather, I was fortunate enough to be able to pursue 2 degrees at the same time. I was picked up in the graduate program for one of the world's biggest um, enterprise, what's the word, IT enterprise firms, if that makes sense. And started there as a graduate in their computer programming division. And I loved problem solving, but I realized very quickly that being a programmer, coding was not really going to be my path in life. I wanted to be involved in sort of helping people solve problems. And although there are parts of IT that do that, at the time, this was in the mid 90s, one had to go through a specific career path in order to get to the people facing roles. I wasn't, I wasn't interested in waiting for the amount of time that it would take, for lack of a better phrase. So I worked, or rather, a mentor, a really trusted mentor and friend, suggested recruitment at the time, and I thought, oh, this could be interesting because, of course, it's dealing with people, it's helping them solve their recruitment or their job needs. And for me, very selfishly, it meant that I could help people achieve their dreams, right? So that started a 25 or more than 25-year career in recruitment. And I initially worked in investment banking, recruiting at very senior levels. Yes.
Wow.
So I was a headhunter back in the good old days of investment banking. Recruiting very, very senior people in the investment banking world, but in a very specific niche. And I did that for over 10 years until the financial crash in 2008. Yes. So for us in the investment banking world, I'm sure if you speak to others in that world, they would tell you that the crash did not actually start in 2008. It started in around 2006 when things started to melt in those specific niche areas that I was talking about, that I was working in. And so after the crash, I took a step back and thought to myself, so, at the time, the investment banking market was in free fall, really. All of my clients in the investment banks became my candidates because they'd lost their jobs. They were all fired. And I couldn't find jobs for them as candidates because none of the banks were hiring, and they certainly were not hiring in those niche areas. And I found myself out of a job as well, because if I'm not placing people, I'm not making money for my company. And so unfortunately, my role was made redundant. So I decided to take a step back and look at where I can bring value in my capacity as a recruiter. And I thought, move in-house. So move from being an external consultant to an in-house internal consultant within the companies, and bring in some of the thinking that headhunters use when searching for the best candidates in the marketplace, and bring that into companies. And I was very fortunate in that, the first company I started working with recognized the need for an in-house headhunter, as it was. So someone could go out in the name of that company directly and attract the best talent to the company. So I did that. And then initially I was still in the finance world, but again, the markets were still in free flow. So I decided to look at other industries where, my skills could be used. And I ended up in mining. So I worked for an international mining company where I started as the manager really for the European team. But by the time I finished there, I headed up the recruitment and talent team for Europe and Africa as well. And
Wow.
so that led me into sort of the ability to work for other companies. So I went from mining, the mining industry, to the pharmaceutical industry. I decided to set up my own, well, not my own, but I was working as a consultant internally, going in and providing recruitment solutions or recruitment transformations for large multinational companies. So both in the private sector, but also in the public sector for organizations like the NHS, the British Council, the large, fast-paced organizations where the need for recruitment, for defined recruitment structures and services, as well as enhanced streamlined processes and strategies for recruitment, and embedding things like diversity within the recruitment process, very much in the forefront of the requirements, the talent requirements for those companies. So that's what I did. And of course, the fact that I was bilingual also helped me push into, work for organizations that had the need for French speakers like myself. So working in West Africa, working in French-speaking countries as well. And and then after COVID, of course, that was a bit of a catalyst for most of us in terms of thinking about our lives. I decided, or rather thinking of what I wanted to do next, I decided to run my own company. Supporting, so the company has two threads. One is supporting executives in their career growth, so senior executives, either those who are feeling stuck or those who are facing career setbacks such as redundancies or terminations of all sorts. And also sort of semi-locally here in the southeast of England, working with small and medium-sized companies and organizations to provide in-house recruitment solutions and for them, as well as training their hiring managers and their recruitment teams on how to recruit effectively. So hence recruitment best practice.
Wow. What a vast and diverse career transitions. There's so much you've done. And at the same time, it does include difficult period for you. And you were intentional to review the situation and then rise above it as it came. And that is sounds awesome, really awesome. And also hearing you talk, the multicultural background, it's not just multicultural background, but there's different transitions in your career, in your personal lives. How have these, shaped your resilience personally and influence your leadership career?
Yes, well, as I said, as a child, living in the diplomatic community and traveling so much, I changed schools quite frequently, and then, growing up and working across sort of multiple cultures really taught me adaptability early on. I learned how to read environments quickly, how to build rapport, and overcome any differences that I face with others that are not of my culture or my background, and be able to adapt, to not only adapt but respect that which is good about the culture of others and adapt to it. And I think for me that's been a key in terms of how I approach new situations, is look at the situation, look at what's good, respect what is good, honor it, in a very overt way with the people I'm dealing with, and adapt to it quickly. And also working with senior leaders in large corporations, and being, usually, if not the only woman in the room, certainly the only Black woman in the room, or the only one in the room. for the most part, it helped me develop a strong sense of self, of myself, and of purpose, why I was in that room in the first place. It always, I was always empowered, or I'm always empowered to look back to where I came from, the reasons why I've made decisions in my life, and to recognize the fact that I'm in that room because of the purpose of my purpose, and to sort of sit in those rooms and not be daunted by the titles and the levels of importance of the people around the table with me. Also, I think the fact that you know being almost forced to be living in the UK has meant that you have to sort of adapt your life to suit your current situation, and so a reason I say that, so an example is that when I say being forced to live in the UK, my intention when I came in the UK to the UK to be with my now ex-husband and to study was to always go back to my home country of the Gambia and give back to my country. However, a military coup in 1994 meant that not only did we have to flee the country, but we fled with literally the clothes on our backs and our lives, for which I'm very thankful. And that means that, having to start over with pretty much nothing, and in my case, a couple of times, helped me become more confident in the fact that I am resourceful and I can use the resources that I have within me and ones that are presented to me in my environment to forge and create something, right? So I learned to turn setbacks into opportunities for growth.
Yes.
And I use those lessons now to not only lead with empathy, but to support others through their own changes as well. So.
Wow, what an awesome story. I hope I'll be able to summarize. There's so much packed in that
Yes.
story, particularly where in terms of resilience and your new environment and experiences, you were intentional to adapt and also to connect and adapt to learn new ways of connecting with the people around you, the new system, the new environment, as well as so that you could make the most of it. And that, I mean, you said rightly, you turned setbacks. There were a couple of setbacks, in terms of your purposes, but you stayed true to your mission. And I like the way you mentioned, turning all setbacks into opportunities. And that helped you to stay true to your mission. And there were no regrets from what you are saying, in spite of the difficult situation where you had to move from home to. So thank you for sharing such an honest story, an intimate story. Thank you for sharing that. It is it's a difficult, even hearing you, it sounds difficult, but you have been intentional to rise above all those setbacks. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It wasn't easy. I can't in any way say it's easy.
No.
And it's not a linear process, within large setbacks, you also always have smaller ones to deal with.
Yes, yes.
But I believe that what helps me is my ability to kind of take those opportunities that I have to step away from the current issues and take a step back and create a plan and follow the plan. Yes.
And I like the way you said it's made you, it did refine you to be more empathetic, more connective to other people's needs as well. And hence you are where you are. But I'd like to know what actually inspired you to shift from the coding system, as a computer programmer to, focusing on developing people with their talents and preparing them for their future careers. I think that sounds interesting. If you can briefly tell me, rationale behind and your inspiration, I'll be
Sure.
appreciated.
Yes, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, once I left, finished my undergrad degree, and I was taken by this, large IT firm.
Mhm.
After the initial sort of, excitement and awe at being able to land a job in such a prestigious organization,
Mhm.
I very quickly came to realize that 16 hours days of programming was not only not fulfilling to me, but um, at the time I hadn't realized that it was it was making me take time away from being with my own children in a way that means that that sacrifice was a waste, right? And I realized that I wanted to work with people because I cared about people. I care about people more than I cared about coding and systems and IT. And at the time, things were really interesting in IT. Don't get me wrong. The reason why I did my degree anyway, was because I was very interested in knowledge representation, and particularly in the way that it was being pursued at the time, in artificial intelligence, so AI that we know
Okay.
today. But and I was very much sort of doubtful whether I should leave the industry, having dedicated 7 years of of studying really in the world of IT, first in Belgium, and then in here in the UK, in Aberdeen. But when I spoke to my mentor, he really helped me to see my strengths, and to recognize that my strengths for what they were at the time. So for me, there were, communication, the ability to work strategically, the ability to be analytical in my approach, but also to be empathetic
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm.
In some senses, maybe a little bit too empathetic,
Yes.
but to
Good.
be empathetic. So when I landed my first recruitment role, I did not like it, to be fair, because it was one of these high street recruitment firms, and I don't have anything against high street recruitment firms, but processing walk-ins for sort of data entry jobs and things like that. To me, it was just process driven. There was no involvement of the so-called recruitment consultant in it. You were just processing people into systems. And I wanted to do something that involved analytics. So when I first landed that role in investment banking, it was to do research. So which involved
Okay.
speaking to these as I mentioned, very high powered people who were earning 6 and 7 figures, right?
Wow.
As
Wow.
a junior graduate, to me, they were like
Wow.
just amazing.
That's
And
amazing.
exactly, and getting to understand what their motivations were, not just the motivations that got them to where they were in their careers, but really what would motivate them to leave a very high paying, relatively secure role and move to another very high paying, not so secure role, certainly not in the beginning. So that was where the psychology came in. That's where really understanding people and being empathetic towards others that don't have the same background or the same experience of life as you. There was a girl from Gambia talking to
Mm,
a
mm.
millionaire, listening to
Yes.
them have about their issues, their financial issues, right?
Yes.
And being able to be empathetic with that and say, okay, where do you want to get to, and let's work together to get you there, and being
Mm,
able to do that. So for me, that was really empowering to say, and it really showed, it really sort of showed me the fact that people are people regardless of where you go, or
wow.
or where they come from, how much they're earning, etc. That everyone deserves an ear, everyone deserves understanding, everyone deserves to be listened to and understood, and for their problems to be recognized, and be validated. So
Wow.
so that first headhunting role taught me a lot, really about life, and
Wow.
now that's brought me to now where I want to really help others find the careers that they love.
Mhm.
Not just sort of working as someone who just ticks boxes and places people into roles, but really enable them to give to understand themselves into such a depth that they can use that understanding of themselves to forge a career that they will grow with and that they will, make an impact with. So, yeah,
Amen. Amen. That sounds also awesome. I think
yeah,
it's so much packed in it. And as you were talking, I could hear you say you went beyond. Your focal point to make impact is to go
yes,
beyond diversity. Yes,
yes,
there you are meeting people of high caliber, very powerful people. At the same time, you were focusing on them as individuals. And
yes,
so it sounds like you embedded inclusion, equity in their personal growth or their personal development. But
that's
because of time, I just want us to go to you are founder of the Advanced Creative Career Mastery. I need to remember that Creative
yes,
Career Mastery system that
yes,
support what you do. Uh, that support what you do. And so
yes.
just briefly, in terms of time, tell me what it is
What it is? Yes, absolutely.
because of
So,
time, and then we
of
can get
course.
advice for the audience.
Of course. So, Advanced Executive Career Program, really, it's a coaching program. I wanted to help mid and senior career professionals, especially women and diverse leaders, to move forward. So ADVANCE stands for awareness, direction, visibility, action, network, confidence, and execution. And basically, it mixes mindset work, so the ability to do very deep, self-discovery, self-understanding, with strategy, career planning, as well as sort of holistic and practical tips for things like the interview process, things like how to negotiate a great salary or a great financial offer from organizations to yourself. So it focuses on building confidence and creating sort of aligned, intentional careers for people in those mid to senior levels, especially after they've faced some setbacks in their careers.
Wow,
And
wow.
I'm glad to say that to date, over the past 2 years that I've been running Advanced Executive Career Mastery, I've helped clients to land senior roles, help them to improve their work-life balance, and also
Yes.
gain clarity in terms of where they want their career to be. Um,
To
yes,
be. All of us need that. And I'll probably connect that more with interview skills. Thank
yes,
you so
absolutely.
much. I think this is a very inspiring and insightful journey you've shared with our audience. And so thank you for being honest and sharing some of the intimate personal things with us. Um, because of time, I would love for you to share words of encouragement with someone who may be navigating, different transitions
Mhm.
and feel stuck. Just briefly, it's form of advice or encouragement to get them out as if they are listening to this conversation.
Yes, of
Please.
course. Yes, of course. Happy to. So, firstly, we have to recognize that transitions are hard, they're very difficult, but really they often lead to the best growth. And, I can really very much attest to that. Um, your journey to where you were and from where you were to where you are now is valid. People tend to disregard certain aspects of their trajectory, their career journey, but everything that you've done, that you've experienced, is valid. So, and don't compare yourself to others, because everyone is in their separate journey, right? You don't have to see the full path uh, in order to make a decision. You just have to take the right next step. And there are ways to ensure, not 100% because nothing in life is guaranteed, but if you focus on your motivations, what drives you, what brings you joy, what brings you true, what really lights the fire within, then the step that you take from that or the decision that you make from that is usually the right decision. Invest in your support circle. That makes all the difference as well. And also trust yourself. You've got more than you realize. And trust your instinct, trust advice from the good people around you, but above all, trust yourself.
Thank you so much for this conversation. For our listeners, you've heard the words of wisdom shared. Please be encouraged to, if you resonate with it, please be encouraged to connect with Maria. I will put her details, how well you can connect with her, but I think she does with not only, chief executives, she can run workshops, trainings, and also coaching sessions. She's a coach, as you heard her. There's diverse roles. So please take the opportunity to connect with her with the details that I will provide after we've rounded everything off. So Marie, I am honored and I appreciate your time, taking time out of your busy schedule to join me this evening. So for our listeners, until the next episode, keep on shining, keep on being the light, and also be empowered and intentional in your various callings. Thank you for tuning in. I
Thank you,
appreciate your
Gifty.
time. Thank you,
Thank you so
Marie,
much.
for joining me.
Thank
Okay.
you.